Guys, let's do floor 53 today, which is definitely a bit of a tricky floor because all of your buffs in the stage will be weakened by 80%. So if you still want to burst this enemy down rather than going for a Mojito stall, you are kind of forced to bring debuffers. And whether how easy can you beat this stage, it kind of just gonna depend on how many debuffers you can actually bring to your team. I haven't actually tried a team with only one debuffer and 3 green DPS because I think for those cases your green DPS need to be like super highly invested. My general suggestion or recommendation for this floor is that you want to bring two green two debuffers plus 2 green DPS, or if your 2 debuffer just happens to be Domain Megami and also Team Geto, then only 1 DPS in the form of Mojito is actually going to be enough because Team Geto obviously function both as a DPS and also debuffer at the same time. So this will be the two strategy that I will show you guys today, and obviously I'll have the game clip at the end of the video for you guys to actually watch it yourself. Let's start off with the first strategy, which is the easier one, which is basically any 2 debuffer plus 2 green DPS, one of them being Mojito, purely because he's the free-to-play option. The thing with this is, assuming Domain Megami is the one of the debuffer on your team, which I have a feeling for vast majority of players that will be the case, because Gakuganji and Team Geto are actually a bit more exclusive than Domain Megami, who's actually understand the banner. So I'm gonna assume everyone have Domain Megami as one of the debuffer choices. And the trick with Domain Megami is that you want to make sure he actually ult on the second turn. And basically the way you're going to do that is use a combination of Toge plus Unity Recollection and also this Recollection, which have the passive ability of getting 1,000 ult energy when your HP is less than 50%. And because the enemy is actually going to do an AoE attack on the first turn, you're guaranteed to get less than 50%. So you can definitely charge up your ult on the second turn. And basically when you're doing that, you can then go into the debuff on turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, and therefore you stack as much debuff as you can on turn 5, where you can then go for a nuke between your 2 other green DPS. Now, the 2 green DPS doesn't have to be highly invested at all. You can see here, even though my UG is at dupe 3, if I actually show you my skills, you can see his ultimate skill is only level 7. So even if your UG is at lower level, or maybe it's a weaker green DPS, as long as you level up the skill up a bit more, you should still be able to burst the enemy down. Now, because you will be going for a combo nuke on turn 5, you would also want to work backwards for Gakuganji, and then you realize your Gakuganji only need to start debuffing from the second turn onwards. Now, if you actually done the math for the curse energy, etc., you would then realize for you to actually stack up Gakuganji's debuff 4 times round, you would actually need an extra 20 curse energy from somewhere. And the place you're going to get it from is going to be this Death by Wasp Recollection, which have this passive ability. When your HP is less than 50%, you're going to get 20 curse energy extra, and that's basically what allows you to stack up all 4 stacks of debuff by turn 5. Now, if you purely go in like this, your Gakuganji may not actually be able to survive the whole battle, so you probably do want a healing Recollection, which is why I have a wish from pass here. But just remember, you want to make sure you are able to trigger this extra 20 curse energy first before topping up your HP with a wish from pass. So that's just something you have to remember. But once you do all of this on turn 5, when you do the combo nuke, you have 3 stack of debuff from Domain Megami and 4 stack of debuff from Gakuganji, and that's more than enough to, even if you're not able to one shot, you would definitely be able to break the enemy, and then that gives you 2 extra turns to just kill off the enemy remaining HP, etc. So this is the first strat, very easy. Any 2 debuffer will do. And then the second strat I'm going to show you, like I said, is when you're actually lacking a proper green DPS, and therefore you kind of need Team Geto to function both as a debuffer and also the green DPS at the same time. Now, even though he can do both jobs, he is obviously not going to be as good as a dedicated debuffer plus a dedicated DPS, and that's kind of why for this strat you'll see I'm not actually able to kill off the enemy with my first ultimate attack, and I actually need to store it out slightly for my Domain Megami and also Team Geto to get to their second ultimate attack. Now, that is obviously easier said than done because the enemy is going to do huge amount of damage, and kind of like Domain Megami can only tank maximum 2 hits. So you definitely need to have a way to navigate around that. And the way you're going to do it is, first of all, you're going to start off the battle in the exact same way, which is basically Domain Megami is going to use his ultimate on turn 2, and then therefore his domain expansion is going to last all the way up to turn 5. Now, it's very important that even if your Mahito have his domain expansion charged up, you do not actually use it till turn 6. And the reason why you want to do that is you want to take full advantage of the fact that domain Megami is going to be immune to any type of attack inside his own domain, and therefore it basically buy you a few extra turns where you're able to absorb the attack from the enemy and therefore then charged up towards your second ultimate attack, etc. So that's kind of why you, on the first 5 turns, all you'll be doing is stacking up the debuff from domain Megami. You will be still ulting on turn 5 in order to get a bit of a damage onto the enemy. That should be probably able to do like half of damage, but you definitely won't be able to actually kill off, or probably won't even be able to actually break it. But then that's okay, because on turn 6 you would then use a domain expansion from Mahito, which should either be able to break the enemy straight away or almost able to break the enemy. And either way it's going to be fine, because you will break the enemy very soon. And when you break the enemy, obviously you're going to get essentially 3 extra turns, because you have the turn where you break the enemy plus 2 extra turns where the enemy is in break status and therefore he won't attack. So that basically buy you 3 extra turns for your domain Megami. Then the other way you're going to buy yourself a few more turns is going to be using SR Kaito. Now, SR Kaito, for the start of the battle, all you will be doing is using your skill 1, because basically the skill 1 is able to apply a debuff. It's only lasting for 1 time in 1 turn, but that's okay. You'll just be stacking there every single time. Well, not stacking, but you'll just be using it every single time to reduce the amount of damage you're going to take. That is basically allow you to build up absolutely tons of curse energy. And basically what that is going to do is that once you actually manage to break the enemy, and then just before the enemy is going to come out of the break status, you should have enough curse energy to actually use his skill 3 twice. Now, even though this actually says nullified 2 times in 3 turns, I think because of the fact all buff are actually weakened in this stage, for some reason it's only going to be 1 time in 2 turns, I believe. But that's okay. Basically you have enough curse energy to do this twice, and then you will be basically applying it to your domain Megami so that he can tank 2 extra turns. And then that plus the the 3 free turns you got from breaking the enemy, those 5 turns in total should have been enough for your domain Megami to charge up his ultimate attack for the second time around. And once you charge up his domain attack the second time around, all you'll be doing is just stacking up his skill 1 debuff again, and then go for a second nuke from your Team Geto. Now, obviously, that kind of requires, I already talked about how to make sure your domain Megami stay alive for that long, but you have to make sure the rest of your team also stay alive for that long. Now, for SR Kaito, it's going to be obvious. He will always be using skill 1. Like I said, that's a debuff. But then the other way you're going to help to survive is basically bring full defensive recollections. So basically I have 2 AoE healing recollection. Everyone should have this one, by the way. This is the one from the event we just got, so everyone should have access to this. It's not a huge HP boost, but it's still 15% and still an AoE, so it kind of works, I guess. And then obviously a wish from past, which hopefully everyone should have by now. And then the other one, which I also bought as a defensive recollection, is this one. Once again, we got this from one of the recent, well, not recent, but an event from like 1 or 2 months ago. So hopefully everyone have access to this. And this one does have this passive. When the enemy is actually in debuff state, you're going to apply an extra 15% damage dealt decrease as well. And pretty much the enemy is always going to be in debuff state because, well, you have 3 debuffers on the field, right? So the enemy is always going to be in debuff state no matter which attack you use, etc. So that basically just makes sure your whole team is actually able to survive all the way till your second ult, and that's where you would then be able to wipe off the remaining part of the enemy HP.